Yeah, I think it's pretty substantial. And AI, as you note, has gone from essentially party trick to now a critical technology that we all use. And I think we are going to look at this moment in retrospect as being a time that the world changed. And there are those moments where we look back and say everything is different now.
Welcome to Being the Change, the official podcast of James Madison University. Brought to you by Madison Magazine. Each episode brings you stories of how members of the JMU community combine intellect with action to live lives of purpose and meaning. That's being the change.
What's up, JMU? Andy Perrine here. Welcome to Being the Change. In this episode, we're going to talk about a very important topic that a lot of college campuses are talking about right now, and that is how AI, artificial intelligence, is going to affect not only the curriculum, but how we prepare students for the workplace, how they exist within the curriculum, how they respond to assignments, and we're thinking a lot about this on campus, and we have a couple guests with us today to explore what's happening at JMU. Bob Colvord is here with us. Bob is provost of the university. Bob used to be the dean of the College of Integrated Science and Engineering. He's a scientist, but he's now provost. Bob, welcome.
Thanks, Andy. It's great to be here with you.
I'm glad you're here. Bob's been on the show before, so he knows the drill here. Also with us is Yasmin Shorish, and she's the Associate Dean for Research and Scholarly Communications in the JMU Libraries, but also she's got the distinction of being the Special Advisor to the Provost on AI, weighing very heavily on her shoulders. Yasmin, welcome.
Thanks.
I'm really glad you're both here. Well, first of all, let's open this conversation with sort of framing the moment. AI has moved from being a novelty to being completely ensconced in every part of our lives in 3 years. The permeation is just incredible. And students are using it for everything from writing assignments to actually completing entire assignments. Bob and I were just talking recently about a new tool called Einstein that can basically do a full course for a student if they so choose. What does that mean to the value of a degree? So we have to talk about all this. But also I want to frame how JMU has been talking about it. We've really taken a thoughtful approach. There's been a task force in place for 2.5 years, almost shortly after AI was introduced. And that's what we're going to explore right now. At the last board meeting, Bob made a statement that he wanted to tell the board what an AI-Infused JMU is going to look like. So we're confronting this head on. But Bob, from your perspective as provost, and for those of our listeners who don't know what a provost is, they're the head academic person on campus. How significant is this AI moment compared to past technological shifts in higher ed?
Andy, I think it's pretty substantial. And AI, as you note, has gone from essentially party trick to now a critical technology that we all use. And I think we are going to look at this moment in retrospect as being a time that the world changed. And there are those moments where we look back and say everything is different now. And from my perspective, I think everything is different now. And we're having to think about what we do in dramatically different ways.
Mm-hmm. And in particular, what is top of mind for you as provost?
Well, you mentioned how the students are using the tools. Our faculty and staff are using the tools as well. And so top of mind for me is making sure that we're using the tools thoughtfully, we're using them responsibly, we are taking care and fulfilling our data stewardship responsibilities. That's something Yasmin knows much more about than I do. But that we're doing what we should be doing, and we're needing to help the students come to grips with the technology that's changing their education. It's changing their attitude towards their education. It's changing the execution of their education.
We know, Yasmin, the libraries at JMU are a resource to faculty and students in a way that I don't know if everybody clearly understands. It's quite deep and broad, but technological literacy and assisting faculty in their research. From the library's perspective, how are you looking at this new tool?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, speaking really specifically just about generative AI, right? It is a very powerful tool, and one that often people say, oh, this is like the internet. And do you remember when they said the internet happened and Google was going to replace all the libraries and we wouldn't need librarians anymore? And of course, that didn't come to pass because information is very complex and it's very difficult to parse what is the information you really need for a task and what is just sort of superfluous noise out there, right? And some of those things hold true with generative AI as well. It can be a powerful tool if you understand how to use it well, if you understand the information landscape that you're trying to engage in, and if you've got that kind of literacy and competency and proficiency with the information landscape, it could be very effective for you. So in terms of how does it, kind of rank as a research tool, it's not necessarily its purpose. It's not purpose built for that, but it can be leveraged in that way. I think we're spending a lot of time in the libraries here really speaking to what Bob was saying and making sure that people understand how to use this technology, how to use it responsibly, and how to use it in assistive technology and not a replacement technology.
Interesting.
And Andy, if I could add, Yasmin pointed out that we're really talking about generative AI. We have been doing AI on this campus for decades. We have faculty members that have done research in that area. Right. So it's really these new tools, a la ChatGPT and Claude, that we're talking about that have really changed the conversation dramatically.
Yeah, and your role as a scientist, I mean, AI has been around 15, 20 years.
Closer to 50.
Closer to 50 years.
Or more.
Thank you for educating me. Well, Yasmin, one of the things I'd like to follow up on, there was a lot of talk 20 so years ago that the internet, that search tools like Google were going to eliminate the need for libraries. The JMU libraries are more highly trafficked now than they ever have been. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, we've got ever more sources of information, ever more types of information, but, we need the tools to know how to effectively use that information, how to effectively find the information that suits your needs. And so this idea of information literacy, of digital literacy, media literacy, AI literacy, right? They all come together in the libraries. And of course, in JMU libraries, we also have our expertise of instructional designers and educational technologists. And that's really a great, matchup, right? Of both helping folks understand how to incorporate new strategies in their classroom with their curricular assignments and design, and then also the research support both for faculty and students as they're trying to, accomplish some new great innovation, making use of all the tools that are available. And those tools also, the book is a technology, and sometimes you just need to go to the shelf in the library and grab the book.
We were talking before we got on the air that there's this great fear out there that AI is going to replace jobs. The internet did not replace libraries. And we've kind of taken the approach, and Bob, we talked about this the last time you were on about the task force, that we are aiming at literacy over fear, and that this thing's coming no matter what we do, and our approach to it is going to have to be positive embrace, because it's coming no matter what.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. What we want to do is find the ways in which AI works best for us as an institution, how it works best for our faculty, for our students, and also to give students the wherewithal so that when they head out to career, graduate school, whatever comes next, I mean, it all goes back to what does it mean now to be educated and enlightened, and how can we help them lead productive and meaningful lives? That mission of the institution, I think, rings more true than ever.
I think that's right. And Yasmin, you are working directly with students and faculty. What are some of the top misconceptions that you're encountering from students and faculty about the place for generative AI on the campus?
Well, I'd say the biggest challenge I run into is really just understanding how it works, understanding the function of this technology. Is important because it does have significant limitations and it does have expansive possibilities, right? But if you don't understand precisely what it's doing, then you're probably not leveraging either of those appropriately. And so I think there is this need for a very basic kind of level of understanding around the technology. And that will go a long way into ameliorating the other misconceptions that exist in there, which are that it's like a search engine, that it can do maths very well and calculations. There's some variance on that, and accuracy, right? And that there's differences between free versions and paid versions with respect to accuracy. And so this has been an interesting experience to have a lot of different kinds of conversations across both with students and faculty, and find this very wide variety of ideas of what this tool can accomplish. Again, I would really underscore that it is assistive technology and not replacement technology. And if people can kind of frame themselves in that way, that helps a lot, I think, because you don't expect assistive technology to do everything for you then, right?
Right.
It can help with a task or a suite of tasks. And I think that is will lead to more effective use of the tool if you take that perspective.
And Yasmin has really, I think, hit on a key element.
Sure.
And the entering class this fall, class of 2030, is going to be our first class that's had generative AI available to them all throughout high school.
That's right.
And they're using it. And we know they're using it. And so how has that changed how they learn? What expectations are they going to bring here? One of the things that Yasmin has talked about and is very articulate about in the discussions that we have and discussions on campus is the need to apply human judgment to this. Well, where are you going to develop the judgment to apply? That's the central challenge for us, and I think faculty are worried about this because they know what the students will use the tool to do, but at some point we need to help them understand that they're going to have to judge whether the tool is accurate or not. And if you don't have any basis, it's really hard to have much judgment.
Well, and to that point, Bob, and building on what Yasmin said, if we can deliver the mindset that, no, this can't replace learning, it can assist learning, that would go a long way for them to be able to build that level of judgment, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And so, partly is the literacy, it's also ethical and appropriate use. And that's something that we also have been talking about quite a bit.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. I mean, that's an area of your expertise, Yasmin. How do our students, how do our faculty navigate that very blurry line of ethical use of AI?
Well, he said this was a 25-minute podcast, so I'm trying to answer in such a way. I think what can help a lot is to have honest conversations in the classroom about what this technology does. Why are you here in this classroom, right? What is your motivation for being here? What does learning mean? What does it mean to learn? I think this is actually a really important and fundamental question that I'm sure, people are like, well, of course people are here to learn, but let's get into what that means. Sure. Learning means trial and error. Learning means that you're not going to get it right every time. Learning means being challenged. This is all what this endeavor is at university or any educational experience, is that you participate in your learning journey fully, right? You're a part of it, you're present, and then you have developed skills. And you gain proficiency in those skills. And it's the application of those skills in your life that can help you be successful in whatever path you choose, whether you're, workforce or graduate school or volunteerism, whatever that path is for you, you've got this suite of skills that you can apply across anything to your success.
Well, this is kind of an upside. I mean, this is kind of foregrounding the philosophy of education. And if we're having those conversations now more rigorously because AI has forced us to, this is a good thing.
Absolutely, it's a good thing, Andy. And I think it is challenging faculty to rethink what they do. And I think in particular, faculty members who have coursework that could be replaced by AI because it's knowledge transmission pieces. I mean, we have, as you know, a lot of students studying health-related things on campus, and we teach a lot of anatomy and physiology classes. Imagine you had a customized tutor available to you that would respond to the way in which you learned, so that you could learn all 206 bones in the human body, or you learned, the different different human systems. That's a different situation, and it suggests then that the faculty member might need to be doing something else to be a value add in that. The other thing, we've not had a chance to talk about it yet, but it is already forcing us to rethink assessment, to understand how it is that we're convinced that someone has learned something, and how they demonstrate it to us, and the different ways. So, we have gone to, largely on campus, a lot of electronic means of doing that. People are writing papers in word processors. They're posting them on our Canvas, our course management site. Now, with the question of who's actually doing that work, it might suggest that maybe there's some more in-class things that we do. The old standby, which Yasmin and I will both remember from graduate school, is the oral exam, which has put fear into the hearts of students since time immemorial.
And will continue to do so.
It will. But if you want to know that someone has learned something, that is an easy way to really get a good sense of what's going on in someone's mind. So now, in a class of 50, it's pretty hard to do oral exams for everybody on every test.
Right.
But we're seeing faculty start to come up with some creative means, and then also engaging with the students to talk to them about how they can demonstrate that they've learned. And I think that partnership is something that I really want to see grow on campus.
Can you give me and our listeners some examples of some of these creative means that you just described with faculty and using AI in new ways?
Yeah, I mean, I know a faculty member who was redesigning her course in a way because she knew that her students would be going into a profession that would have AI present, right, in the tools. And so she's having them do the work of researching a particular case study on their own and drafting up, their findings around that case study, and then having them do that same kind of prompting of the case study with a generative AI co-pilot. And then they have to evaluate what co-pilot has provided
as compared to what their initial work was,
compared to their own research, and then they have to ask it, to provide all their sources, its sources of how it came to its conclusions. Then they have to check and see that those sources actually back up what the output was saying. So that's a very interesting and critical use of the generative AI. But it's very important that they do the work themselves first, right?
Right.
And then when you've done it with the agent, you can look and see that's clearly different, first of all. But the student is able to make that assessment and be really enfranchised in that evaluation process. And they've put the labor in to show their learning and conceptual grasps on the front end. And I thought that was a really reasoned and thoughtful way to approach something where she wants the students to be well prepared for their professions, and doesn't want to shortchange their learning in the classroom or, kind of ostrich around the idea of AI, right?
Well,
and Andy, we're trying to share those use cases, those examples, and in fact, Yasmin is organizing a conference for faculty in June. And I don't know if we'll have a chance to talk about that today, but I'm really excited about that because it's going to let the faculty come together with Yasmin and other experts and really talk in depth and detail about a number of these issues, about how they're going to address them, pros, cons, pitfalls, cow pies, whatever it is, to help us be more effective across academic affairs across all of the colleges in working on this.
And I do want to say too, it is important to remember that not every single class and not every single profession, for that matter, right, are going to require some deep integrative use of general AI, or of generative AI. It is not an all or nothing proposition. And so don't be alarmed if you hear about classes that don't have any kind of treatment with Gen AI.
It's not every moment.
Yeah. Well, I love the example you described, Yasmin, because the other thing that it does, not only allowing the student to iteratively work with the agent, but it removes the relationship issue between the student and the faculty member, in that the faculty is no longer an AI cop. They're actually like embracing the technology, so they don't have to be sneaking around about it, and that completely changes the dynamic in the classroom, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, academic integrity is important, right? And it was important before Gen AI, and it's important afterwards. But I don't think it's productive to have that be the central concern or even argument around the use or not use of this. It really is about what is the learning journey and how is this either aiding in that or detracting from that.
Yeah.
And Andy, a number of other campuses got so caught up in trying to be the cheating cops that it really, I think, disrupted their conversations. We acknowledge that there's no technology that reliably detects work that's done by AI. And so we opted just not to go down that rabbit hole and have the kinds of conversations that Yasmin is talking about, where we're asking the faculty to think about this. Academic integrity is certainly an issue. People have been cheating for a long time. And this is just a new way to do it. And faculty will, and now it's turning out that, if you read enough student papers, it's not that hard to pick out those, because AI has a style.
It sure does.
Interestingly enough. So I think we've had a healthy attitude towards that. And while it would be lovely to be able to flip a switch and, have a machine tell you, that doesn't really feel within the spirit of what we're trying to do here at JMU.
Well, and we do have a canon to protect and to project, but we avoided some of the missteps that other institutions have made, in that it's not an adversarial relationship. We're going through this together. Bob, one of the things I wanted to explore just a little bit more, our listeners may know that JMU is kind of renowned for some of its advanced work in assessment. Our Center for Assessment and Research Studies produces a lot of the folks who assess everything in this country. Our graduates are very cherished in the workplace. How will we use our leadership in that area to get out in front of creating a body of data that allows us to see how our work in embracing AI is actually benefiting the student, is actually preserving academic integrity?
So, Andy, it won't surprise you to know they're already on top of this.
I'm not surprised.
They have an AI instrument that they have started to pilot in some of our assessment work. I think it probably still needs a little more tweaking, but we're going to try and do our level best to understand what the students know and are able to do, and to be able to document that in the same way we can document learning, a variety of different kinds of learning, their communication skills, their critical thinking skills. So we're all over it.
Yeah. And listeners, you wouldn't believe some of the things that you would think are slippery in terms of where they are in your neural synapses. They can figure that out and they can measure it. It's unbelievable. We've been talking about the student experience. We've been talking about faculty research. One of the things that, and I'm an administrator, and Bob is an administrator, and Yasmin is considered one as well. They're both scholars, though. I was never a scholar. My grades will attest to that. But how we use AI in running the institution, there are a lot of institutional administrative benefits that can be realized, streamlined, improved. So from your perspective as provost, Bob, how are we looking at that?
That's a great question, Andy. And I do want to highlight, so along with Yasmin, I've worked very closely with Bethany Novisky, who's the dean of the JMU Libraries, and Robin Bryant, who is the head, it's our chief information officer and the head of information technology at JMU. And we've been kind of a triumvirate to really push the institution on AI. Robin and I are co-chairs of Reengineering Madison, which is our large-scale IT renovation project. I keep joking that we're going to finally have 21st century IT plumbing
in the 22nd century.
Yeah, well, step at a time. But in these new systems that we're bringing in, so we're replacing our finance system, we're replacing our human resources system, our student system will be next. There's AI built in already.
Sure.
The other thing that we're seeing, and I think you're probably seeing this in your world, is our creatives are using it already. They are using it to start things often. That it's the first draft.
The first draft of this podcast discussion guide is from AI.
And so I think we're seeing folks across the campus understand that there are going to be ways in which they can use it to improve their work, to allow them to move away from the more mundane tasks and do the things. And I think this is the critical point. To do the things that humans have to do, that only humans can do. And I think what we're trying to help our students and faculty understand, and our staff as well, is this is not about lowering the number of employees at JMU or automating everything we do. It's about finding those unique things where we need people and then allowing them to have actually maybe deeper and more enriching jobs than they might have right now.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of possibility, and I would invite the listeners to stay tuned. There's much more to come.
And I do want to just jump in to say, in the conversations I've had about this administrative use of AI, something that I've been, really encouraged by is hearing how people across the university in a variety of roles all are taking a really thoughtful approach to how they're using the AI in their work, and every single one of them is very committed to what we call the human in the loop kind of approach, right? Which is that you're not farming everything out, right? You always are involved in some way of reviewing what's been produced, of the human in the loop, right? As it speaks for itself in that, but like that they take the responsibility of their work very seriously, and that is the kind of adaptation and adoption that you want to see with any kind of technology, and that they're still keeping that care and responsibility and human-centered approach really at the core of what they do.
Well, as a very sanguine campus, it seems like we might have an advantage in that realm. And as far as talking about what's next in all of this, one of the things that we're all involved in is the strategic planning process that President Jim and the board have been impelling this last year at a quite high velocity, and it's developing into what looks like sort of an AI future campus. And that we're aiming at delivering a graduate to the marketplace who has those human skills in addition to the skills that are connected to their discipline.
Yeah, I mean, I have been in other conversations across the state with representatives from a variety of industries, and including tech industries, and they say, please ensure that your graduates have critical thinking skills. Like this is their number one ask, right? And by kind of understanding as a campus our mission, our responsibility to the educational enterprise, and that can happen in concert with emerging technologies such as generative AI, we're really ensuring that a graduate from JMU has that fully well-rounded experience and a versatility with different types of scenarios, right, that they can apply themselves to and meet whatever the current demand is or what their own aspirations are, that they have the tool set to go out and do that, still with that grounding of critical thinking, sort of the well-rounded liberal arts education sort of effort, a campus of this size is still able to deliver.
Right.
And like you said before, not in an antagonistic way.
Right.
And Andy, to put an exclamation point behind that, what we're going to continue to do is to provide our students a high-quality education. AI folds into the technical skills. We continue to bring in what President Schmidt's calling the power skills, and the things that have differentiated our grads as they moved into the workforce and into graduate school. So it's both ends.
For generations, it's been that way.
And we're driving on, but we're going to make sure that AI is in the car.
Yeah. Well, it's really, I think, for our listeners, incredibly optimistic in that the things that can't be replaced by AI are the things that a lot of our graduates are known for. Well, thank you so much, Bob and Yasmin, for being on the program. As this continues to unfold, will you return?
Absolutely. Love to talk some more about it.
That would be great. All right, listeners, if you have any ideas for new episodes or you just want to be in touch, you can reach us at beingthechange@jmu.edu. Until next time, go Dukes.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe to hear more stories about how members of the JMU community are being the change. Dive deeper and explore countless other stories at jmu.edu/Madison Magazine. Go Dukes!
The Being the Change podcast was conceived by Jim Heffernan, editor of Madison Magazine, and me, Andy Perrine, head of JMU Marketing. Thanks to Jenna Polk and her team at the Rose Library Studios, where the show is recorded by Cody Troyer, Steve Adderton, and Olive Santos, all of the crazy talented JMU photo video team, who then produced the final episodes at the Ice House in downtown Harrisonburg. Original music by 2019 alumnus Neil Perrine. You can find the Being the Change podcast on all the popular platforms where we hope you'll like, share, and subscribe.